أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع لذنوبنا وتبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد صلى على والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. وفقنا الله وإياكم بعلم وعمل صالح إن شاء الله بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. أما بعد فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My felicitations and mubarakis to each and every one of you on this auspicious night when we have congregated to remember the eighth infallible in the household of Ali Muhammad salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'een. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we begin to examine the life of Imam al-Radha alayhi salam, we see that this holy personality has been given a number of different titles, a number of different laqabs or alqab that was designated to him by other members of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And so let's discuss some of these titles amongst others and see what significance it had in the life of the Holy Infallible. And there are four different titles which I want to examine. Number one, why was he known as Alim Muhammad? Number one. Number two, why was he known as Gharib al-Tus? Number three, why was he known as Ridha? And number four, why was he known as Anis al-Nufus? As we say in his ziyarah, Assalamu alayka ya Anis al-Nufus. With regards to the first title that was given to him, Alim Muhammad, this title was given to him by his father, Imam Qadim alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When he would come towards some of his companions and he would say that my son is the scholar of Ali Muhammad. So when you come towards him, then come and ask questions towards him. Ask questions. And the answers that he gives you, make sure that you record them and you preserve them. Do not forget the answers that he has given you. Now some of you may ask the question, but aren't the other members of the Ahlul Bayt considered as ulama, the greatest of their time? Why isolate Imam al-Radha alayhi salam specifically and label him with the position of the scholar of Ali Muhammad? The reason is because of his position as the crown prince to Ma'mun al-Rashid. He was given the position of Wilayat al-Ahad. In fact, he was forced into that position. And when he became the crown prince, second hand to Ma'mun al-Abbasi, he found that naturally, because Ma'mun wished to belittle the position of Imam al-Radha alayhi salam. He wished to insult him and humiliate him. Now, how was he able to insult and humiliate the Imam alayhi salam? Remember, he couldn't assassinate the Imam. He couldn't, for example, imprison the Imam because his father Harun did the same. His father Harun al-Abbasi imprisoned Imam al-Qadim alayhi salam for 14 odd years. And that didn't work because a number of uprisings began to spur within the kingdom of the Muslim empire. So Ma'mun decides to make him the crown prince. But when he became the crown prince, Imam al-Radha alayhi salam, when he became the crown prince, part of the job was that he would be publicly engaged in debates with all the different scholars. So on a daily basis, week in, week out, month in, month out, you found that the Imam alayhi salam was constantly engaged in dialogues and debates, in polemics with different scholars of different religions. The Hindus would come and debate with him, the Sunnis, the Christians, the Zoroastrians, the Jews, the atheists, constantly. And the Imam alayhi salam publicly in the courtrooms of the Abbasids would engage in public debates with them. And in every debate, he would always come out on top. Every debate you find that the Imam alayhi salam always had the upper hand. Allama Tabrasi, he gathers as many debates as he can and he compiles a book by the name of Al-Ihtijaj. Likewise, Sheikh As-Saduq rahmatullah alayh, he compiles a book, Uyun al-Akhbar al-Ridha. He collects all of the different debates that Imam al-Radha alayhi salam engaged in. And these are profound debates, very meticulous debates that highlights the knowledge of Ali Muhammad, especially the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So here Imam Kadhim alayhi salam refers to his son as the scholar of Ali Muhammad because it was the chance for the Imam alayhi salam to open the floodgates, to share the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam on a public level. And his knowledge was spread far and wide to the extent that many accepted his wilayah, to the extent that many accepted his position as a scholar, as a true scholar. So this was the first title designated to the Imam alayhi salam. The second title is that he was known as Gharib at-Tus. Why was he known as Gharib at-Tus? Gharib at-Tus meaning the stranger in the lands of Tus, in the lands of Khurasan. As you know, he is buried in the lands of Mashhad today. A person can be rich, but can also be considered to be Gharib. Not necessarily is a Gharib a poor person. Imam al-Radha alayhi salam is known as Gharib at-Tus. Here the ulama came forward and gave a number of different suggestions as to why he is the stranger in the lands of Khurasan. One of these explanations was because the Imam alayhi salam was a spiritual person. And because when you find a person who is of a spiritual maqam, who has a spiritual position, he lives amongst the people, but he's not there with the people. Yes, he walks in the same street as the people, he shops in the same bazaars, in the same markets, but there's something different about him. On a spiritual level, he is completely on a different level. He thinks about things which we often don't think about. He operates on a level that we don't operate on. So yes, he's there physically amongst the people, but spiritually he's somewhere else. Like Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. They say the Imam alayhi salam used to live amongst the people of Kufa, but he wasn't with them. Neither were the people of Kufa with him. Yes, physically he was there, but he was not with them spiritually. He would often complain to Kumail ibn Ziyad al-Nakha'i. He would take Kumail towards the Sahara, towards the deserts of Kufa, the outskirts of Kufa, and he would sit down and he would complain. The people, they don't understand me. The people, they don't listen to me. If they were to listen to me, I would move them forward. I would advance the entire society to levels of spiritual progression. So the Imam used to constantly complain to Kumail ibn Ziyad, which shows, some of the ulama, they give the example of, if you look at, for example, the depths of the earth, you find the diamonds and the gems, the rubies, the sapphires, hidden in the depths of the earth, but it's surrounded by the mud and the dirt, the sand. This is the position of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Yes, they used to live amongst the people, but they were not recognized as the gems that they ought to be recognized. So here the ulama began to say that he was known as Gharib at-Tus because of his spiritual maqam. The second reason why he was known as Gharib at-Tus is because the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, in fact each and every one of them prior to Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam were Medinan. They were born in the city of Medina, or they lived the majority part of their lives in the city of Medina. They were recognized as Medinans. From the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam all the way to the time of Imam al-Radha alayhi salam. But then the Imam alayhi salam, he was forced out of Medina towards the lands of Khurasan. His family was there, his wives, his son Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was there, who was very dear to him, his successor, whom of course he had at a very late time in his life. He was forced out of Medina and he was forced into the lands of Khurasan because he had to leave his business and his lads and his family and his companions. He was effectively known and labeled or given the label of Gharib. The third reason as to why he was known as Gharib is simply because he had a son at a very late age. So this is an opinion amongst the ulama. Amongst them, they said that the people questioned the imam of Imam Radha alayhi salam. Why? Because one of the conditions of being an imam of the people on this earth is that this person should be free from any defects. If a person is not able to have children, this is a defect in itself, especially amongst the people of the society of that time. So they used to question the legitimacy towards the wilayah of Imam alayhi salam. But then the Imam alayhi salam has a son at a very late age, and of course the lineage of Imam continues. The fourth reason as to why he was known as Gharibatus is because Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Was because a number of his companions left him, especially after the martyrdom of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Now they say that when Imam Kadhim alayhi salam passed away, just before he passed away, there were a number of scholars in his time that were very close to the Imam, and the Imam trusted them to the extent that they were the wukala of the Imam alayhi salam. The Imam entrusted them with the responsibility of collecting khums and so on and so forth. When Imam Kadhim alayhi salam passed away, these individuals who were considered to be ulama, they refused to give allegiance to Imam Ridha alayhi salam. In fact, they did not believe in the imamah of Imam Ridha alayhi salam. They are known as the Waqifiyya, those who did waqf on Imam Kadhim alayhi salam. They are of the belief that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam is the Mahdi and that he never died. He went into ghaiba, in occultation, and one day he will come back and he will return as the Mahdi. So this is the belief that they had. Imam Radha alayhi salam gives la'na to these people. In fact, some of these people, they collected tens and thousands of dananirs and khums, and they refused to give that money towards the Imam alayhi salam. And so the Imam lashes out at them. He gives la'na towards them. So you found that because these people at one point in time were very close to Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, and then all of a sudden did a U-turn and moved away from Imam Radha alayhi salam, Imam Radha was coined or was given the label of Gharib. He was deserted by some of his most closest companions and amongst the ulama. So this is with regards to the title of Gharib al-Tus. The third title was that he was given the title of Ar-Ridha. Ar-Ridha literally means someone who is satisfied, someone who is accepted, someone who is seen with security, someone who is accepted by the people of the community. They say a man by the name of Bizanti. Bizanti is one of the close companions of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. One day came towards the Imam and he said, Yabna Rasulillah, the mukhalifin, those who oppose your position of being the Imam on this earth, they are going around saying that Ma'mun al-Rashid was the one who gave the title Ar-Ridha to your father. The Imam alayhi salam says, why? What's the reason for this kalam? He says the reason why they say this is because lamma radiyahu liwalayat al-ahad. It was the time when your father accepted the position of wilayat al-ahad. And when your father accepted the position of being the crown prince, he was satisfied or he was accepting of it. He showed radha, contentment. Now here the ulama came forward and they said, when you read the hadith itself is very ambiguous. Who was satisfied? The Imam alayhi salam, was he satisfied to the position of being a crown prince, or was it Harun, or was it Ma'mun? Who was satisfied? The ulama, they say, when you go into history and you listen to the words of Imam Radha alayhi salam, specifically to being the crown prince of the ummah, he showed great displeasure in having such authority. In fact, he came forward to Ma'mun and he said that if you're giving me the choice of being the crown prince, then I reject. I have no interest in being the crown prince. Upon which Ma'mun threatens him. The Imam says, Ma'mun says to him, if you do not accept the position of the crown prince, then I will assassinate you, I will kill you. The Imam himself comes forward and he says, I was forced into the position of being a crown prince, to the extent that if I had rejected it, I would have lost my life. Not only that, beyond that, you find that Imam Radha alayhi salam puts forward many conditions conditions which Ma'mun essentially accepts to. One of these conditions is that the Imam alayhi salam is only a crown prince by namesake. That he has no interference in the world of politics, in the worlds of sociology, nothing. The Imam alayhi salam, his only title is being the crown prince, but he has no responsibilities whatsoever. Upon which Ma'mun accepts. Ma'mun accepts, and all of a sudden there's an inauguration. The Imam alayhi salam is promoted to the position of crown prince. But the Imam alayhi salam had great displeasure at this. So the ulama say that the one who was pleased of the Imam, crown prince, was Ma'mun himself and not the Imam alayhi salam. So when Byzanti said to Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam that the mukhalifin, your opposition, are going around saying that Imam al-Ridha, your father, was pleased to the position of being the crown prince, Imam al-Jawad responds, he says, فَكَذَّبُوهُ, he says, they have lied. And they have associated a lie to my father, وَفَجَّرُوهُ, and they have become fajr in this essence, in this area. He says, indeed, Allah has chosen the name of Radha for my father. Fi sama'ihi. Here the ulama, they say, what is the meaning? Fi sama'ihi. Allah has chosen the name of Radha for my father in a world that precedes this world. Before the existence and the creation of dunya and the world of alim al-dhar, Allah chose the name of Radha for my father. And when my father was recognized and distinguished with the position of Ar-Ridha, all of a sudden the Anbiya as well as the other members of the A'immat al-Athar all accepted it and they were satisfied by it. Byzanti, he's a scholar, he's a faqih, mutaqallim, alim. He adds a question. He says, Yabna Rasulillah, hold on a second. Why is your father known as Ar-Ridha specifically? Considering that your forefathers, they were all considered to be Ar-Ridha as well. It's a heavy question. Upon which the Imam alayhi salam responds, he says, Sahih, my forefathers, all of them are Ridha, but my father is the Ridha. Why? The reason being is because not only his friends, but even his enemies and his opposition and the people, his opponents, those who did not even accept his wilaya, they all accepted him and they were satisfied by him and his position and his knowledge and his akhlaq. And this is something that is exclusive for my father, which no member of the Ahlul Bayt had before him. And for that reason, he is known as Ar-Ridha. With regards to his fourth characteristic or his fourth laqab title, in fact, before going there, you find the ulama, they say that with regards to this hadith of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, they say that this title, Ar-Ridha, when it was chosen for the Imam alayhi salam, this title was designated by Allah. Allah gave him the title of Ar-Ridha. In fact, they even say that this was the actual name of Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. In contrast to the popular opinion, we say that the Imam alayhi salam displayed certain attributes and characteristics within their societies, within their communities. And the people of their communities were known by those attributes, and hence they were recognized by those specific attributes. So if you look at Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, the people recognized him to be truthful, and so they coined him as As-Sadiq. Al-Baqir alayhi salam, he was the one who split open knowledge, and the people in his community recognized that, so they all gave him the name of Al-Baqir. Imam al-Qadhim, they recognized him to be a man who swallowed his anger, therefore they coined him or they gave him the title of Al-Qadhim. This hadith explains that no, these titles were given and designated to the Imams by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they lived in this world, they were the practical, physical embodiment of these titles. But essentially, it wasn't the people that came and gave the Imams these titles. It was Allah Rabbil Alameen. Now finally, the fourth title of the Imam alayhi salam, he is known as Anis al-Nufus. Anis al-Nufus, meaning someone who is very close, someone who is very intimate, someone who is very, very close to the souls, the nufus, the people around them. The ulama here, they say that whoever calls out to Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam, in times of ham, in times of gham, they will see a response coming from Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam. If someone has spiritual problems in their lives, they should seek the intercession of Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam. Physical, material problems, certain illnesses, for example, political problems, social problems, Refer to Imam alayhi salam, seek his intercession, and you will see a response from him, most definitely. And there are many different examples that are seen in history where people would have interactions with Imam al-Radha and they would see answers in their lives. One of them, Da'bal al-Khuzai. Da'bal al-Khuzai has a beautiful history with Imam al-Radha. The famous poetry or the lines of poetry that are often read on the day of Ashura, the author of whom was al-Khuzai. They say that on the day of Ashura, when al-Khuzai begins to recite lines of poetry on behalf or in honor of Imam Husayn alayhi salam, when he finishes, Imam Radha alayhi salam turns to him, he says, Da'bal, we thank you for your lines of poetry. And he gives a little hadiyah to Da'bal. He gives him a few coins. When Da'bal, he sees these coins, he says, Yabna Rasulullah, I don't want these coins. The reason why I recited these lines of poetry is because of my aqidah. It's not because of the worldly pleasures. So he returns them to the Imam. The Imam says, Da'bal, take them, فَإِنَّكَ تَحْتَاجُ عَلَيْهَا. You will need them. Take it with you. Da'bal, he takes the coins. Da'bal narrates, he says, when I returned home, when I opened my door and I entered my house, I saw that everything in my house had been stolen. All of my furniture, my amwal, my wealth, everything had been taken away. It says what was interesting is that these coins specifically, these coins, they were manufactured and they had the name of Imam al-Ridha on them. They were stamped, engraved on these coins. It said when the people in my community saw that I was carrying the coins of al-Ridha, the name of the Imam alayhi salam coined on them or engraved on these coins, they came and they bought these coins off me. These coins, they weren't worth very much. Dirhams. The hadith says, Da'bal says that they came and they bought dirhams for dananirs. They took pennies, but they gave pounds in return. It said the amount of money that they paid for these coins, simply because it had the name of Ar-Ridha, he says, Ghanaytu biha. He says, I became rich because of it. Today when you go to Masjid and you give a little sadaqah, they give you coins, yes, with the name of Imam Ar-Ridha. It's because of this hadith. Another narration, they say that there was a man by the name of Abdullah ibn Sawqa. Very interesting narration. Abdullah ibn Sawqa, he says that one day I was walking in the street and all of a sudden I came across the Imam alayhi salam. And the Imam was also traveling and he was with his servant. He says, for some reason or another, I decided to join the Imam alayhi salam. We walked towards the outskirts of the city where all the animals were. He said, when we came towards the outskirts of the city, now in this hadith, Abdullah ibn Sawqa, he narrates, he says that I used to be a mukhalif. I used to be one of the opposition. I considered myself a Shia, but not an Ithna Ashariya. I was a Zaydiyya. But I never believed in the wilayah of Imam al-Radha alayhi salam. So we traveled towards the outskirts of the city and we saw a few animals there. The Imam alayhi salam does ishara to one of the animals. Does a little signal. The animal comes running towards the Imam alayhi salam. Which animal? It's a small young deer, according to the hadith. The small young deer comes towards the Imam and it comes towards the laps of the Imam and it sits at the lap of the Imam. The Imam begins to caress the head of the deer. And then it turns to the animal. He says to the animal, go towards my ghulam, go towards my servant. So the animal gets up and it slowly moves towards the servant. But then Abdullah ibn Sawqa, he narrates, he says, when I saw the face of this deer, it was very uncomfortable. It was in a state of severe distress and discomfort. It began to cry. And all of a sudden, it turned and it came back to the Imam alayhi salam. And when the Imam saw that this animal is in distress and discomfort, all of a sudden it began to speak to the animal. So I was shocked. The Imam alayhi salam is speaking in words, la nafhamuhu. We couldn't understand these words, but it was speaking to the animal. And all of a sudden, when the Imam stops speaking with the animal is as if fataskan. The animal reaches the level of sukuna. It's at peace. Complete peace. Now some of you may be thinking, what is this? Blasphemous, exaggeration. The Imam alayhi salam speaking to animals? So where do we get these narrations and ahadith from? We turn to the Quran. Quran, what does it say? The Quran says that Nabi Dawood used to have mantiq at-tayr, used to speak the language of the birds. Sulaiman likewise used to speak the language of the birds. On Thursday we'll discuss, yes, Sulaiman, when he interacts with the ants in the valley, Sulaiman had knowledge of the animals as well. That was power given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where is the wilayah of Sulaiman alayhi salam and the wilayah of Imam al-Radha alayhi salam? There's no comparison at all. If you think that the wilayah of Imam al-Radha does not come close to the wilayah of Sulaiman alayhi salam, maybe perhaps we should review our aqeedah a little bit. So here in this area, it says that when the Imam stopped speaking with the deer was in the state of sukoon. Then the Imam turns to the deer and he says, go back. Go back to your land, go back to your home. And as the deer started moving away, all of a sudden it was again in the state of distress. And what did it do? It came back towards the Imam alayhi salam. It came towards the leg of the Imam and it began to caress the leg of the Imam with its head. Then it began to let out some sounds. It was speaking with the Imam. The Imam turns to Abdullah ibn Sawqa. He says, Abdullah, awala tu'min? Do you not believe now? Upon which Abdullah, he says, Bala ya Sayyidi. Of course, now I believe. I believe that you are anta hujjatullah ala khalqi wa ana ta'ibun ila Allah. I understand that you are the wali of Allah and I turn to Allah in forgiveness for my disobedience. He says, Ya Abdullah, do you know what the animal just said to me? He says, only Allah, the Prophet and his wasi would know what the animal said to you. Ya Ibn Rasulillah, tell me, what did the animal say to you? He said, the animal said to me, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, when you called me, I was happy and I came running to you. And I hoped that you would eat from my flesh so I would become a part of you. These are words, ajib words, very ajib words. It says, so that I become a part of you if you were to eat from my flesh. Here the philosophers, they came. Our ulama, Allah bless them. They say, you have to understand the purpose of life for the animals. What did the philosophers say? The philosophers say, when you look at everything that Allah has created in this world, everything that Allah has created in this world is moving towards perfection. Every atom wants to be part of the largest of galaxies. This is the perfection of the atoms. A seed that you would throw in the ground wishes to become a plant, a beautiful flower or a tree. It moves towards perfection. Everything moves towards perfection. As human beings, we gain knowledge. This is our form of perfection. Or we gain wealth. This is our form of perfection. We are constantly in the state of movement. Likewise, animals are also constantly moving towards perfection. They too yearn to seek perfection. What's their level of perfection? It's not to remain in the state of haywaniya, to remain in the state of being animals. No, they want to transcend beyond that. They want to become part of human beings. Yes, why human beings specifically? Because human beings are ashraful makhluqat. Beyond that, to be a part of the believers. Beyond that, imagine being part of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. The absolute state of perfection for an animal, something which is edible of course, is to be part of the Ahlul Bayt, to become part of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. It says, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, when you called me, I was happy and I hoped that you would eat from my flesh so I would become a part of you. But now you are telling me to go back to my homes and I've lost that opportunity. And it begins to cry. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the opportunity to seek the intercession of Imam al-Radha alayhi salam. Assalamu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba wa Anis al-Nufasa. Assalamu alayka ya Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha. Kun shafi'ana wa shafi'a walidayna fi yawm al-jaza'. Intercede for us and for our parents on the day of judgment, inshaAllah. وآخر الدعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.